section. The ones that are part of it. Gracie, just click on the files section. All right. So I have a yes. Okay. And I have uploaded the text. So I think the first thing that we will be starting with today is the characteristics of epic poetry. And yeah, just a second. So I hope the screen is visible. Hello, Khalixa? Hello? Please check in the files uploaded because I have seen all the files that you guys have uploaded also. So yeah, so let's start with the characteristics of an epic poetry. So because you have already done Indian epics, so I hope you will try to bring in, you know, the similarities, or it might just give you, you know, you can just think about what you have studied and try to connect with what is being taught to you right now. All right, so I hope this is visible. Characteristics of an epic poetry. And there are, of course, several characteristics of epic poetry. And if you read other books also, if you try to read what epic means in terms of literature, you will come across a lot of points that may obviously differ than the ones that I have listed. So don't get worried that, you know, ma'am didn't tell us about this particular point, or in this material or in this book, this point is being discussed. So it's absolutely fine if someone adds to the list, or someone subtracts the from the list of characteristics, as long as it suits the text that you are reading. It is fine. Okay, I'm sure, because now that you are in college, I hope that you can make a choice between reading something that is actually you know, that is actually good and that actually makes sense, than reading anything and everything that is probably present on the internet. All right, so characteristics of an epic poetry. The first and foremost characteristic is what distinguishes it from other epics, is the fact that it is really, really long, right? Because it's expansive size, and epic is an extensive and prologued narrative in verse. And usually every single epic can be broken down into multiple books. For example, the Odyssey has almost 15,000 lines, and the Iliad has almost 12,000 lines. Also, once you are probably in your second semester, third semester, you will be reading Paradise Lost, that is equally expansive in its nature, and it has almost 12 books. We have 24 books in Iliad. Okay, which reminds me to tell you that please read the text. Then another essential feature of the epic is the fact that it dwells upon the achievements of a historical or a traditional hero, or a person of national or international significance. So very, very important, which you have already studied in Indian classical texts also, that the hero or the protagonist of the epic is always going to be someone special. He is not going to be an ordinary man. He's always going to be a special person, you know, a hero, a traditional hero, a historical hero that is perhaps representative of his or her, of his times, right? Every epic extols the valor. Sorry, there's this error. Valor, courage, deeds, valor, courage, deeds, bravery, honor, sacrifice, patriotism, and all of these important abilities as an archer. The epic poem follows these heroes for years as they accomplish feat after feat and allow the cultures that generate them to claim mythic, powerful phobias that embody treasured strengths like strength, intelligence, and bravery. So, what we have looked at the expansive nature of the epic and the traditional hero of the bygone era. All right, and please just remember, like I've said, keep on thinking about how you have studied the epic in in the Indian context as well. And then exaggeration, a very, very important part of an epic. The poet uses hyperbole, right? He uses hyperbole to reveal the prowess of the hero. The language of the epic consists of ornamental similes, recurrent epithets, and verse written in expressive style. And this will connect to the Homeric simile that we will be doing later today if we have time, or else in the next class, which is very, very important to us. So in the epics, you will see ornamental language, very flowery language, exaggerating everything, whether it is the setting, whether it is the protagonist, everything will be talked about in the most extraordinary way. All right, so exaggeration is an important characteristic of the epic, and this will connect to the idea of Homeric simile that we will be studying later. And Homeric simile is one of the most important, questions if you which have appeared earlier in the 10 years paper. Also, another important question is what is an epic and what are the characteristics conventions? What are the characteristic conventions of an epic as seen in the Iliad? So you can talk about these particular characteristics by giving examples from the text. All right, then supernaturalism, very important feature of any epic, the presence of magic, the presence of the supernatural elements, the gods, the goddesses, right, the angels, the demons, everything is part of the epic. All right, and you have examples like Paradise Lost, you have Homer's Iliad, you have Beowulf, you have Fairy Queen, which are these famous epics that have fairies or that have gods, that have goddesses, that have demons, satans, everyone as part of their character. As part of their characters, right? And then morality. Another very key element of an epic is morality. The poet's foremost purpose in writing an epic is to give a moral lesson. Why is an epic written by the poet? Right? It's always to tell the man of his or her age about what is right and what is wrong, about how morality is important, right? So for instance, you have John Milton's, of course, Paradise Lost, which you will be studying later in probably second year, which is going to tell you the ways of God to men, to justify the ways of God to men. And this is a very important line, right? And here too in Iliad, you are focusing on the honor, you are focusing on the sacrifice, you are focusing on the strength, the ability of Achilles, the hero. All right, so these things are very, very important. And like I've said, morality is a key characteristic in the epic. And because you have studied Indian classical, please go back to those texts and think about what are the characteristics that are coming forth and that can be related to these epic conventions that we are studying right now. Then epic relates to historic events, often from a remote era, right? A time that is already gone, a bygone era, a era really, really far, not far ahead, not in the future, but somewhere really, really at the beginning of time, right? In an attempt to define a cultural heritage or transmit societal values. The history that informs an epic's narrative takes place on a grand scale, often over the course of years, which is something that's happening in Iliad too. The Iliad portrays the decade-long Trojan War, an actual event that took on a legendary significance. And the Aeneid recounts the adventurous life of Aeneas, mythic father of Rome, fabricates links between Augustus' Rome and Greek Golden Age. So yeah, and Greek Golden Age. So yeah. Iliad, you have Aeneid, you have Jerusalem Delivered, who are again talking about the First Crusade. So the epic published an anxiety over Ottoman, for example, I'm giving example of Jerusalem Delivered. Expansion sought to imbue the historic conflict between Christians and Muslims with mythic import. So you are seeing that most of these texts are talking about the very beginning of time, right? The First Crusade in Jerusalem Delivered, or Iliad, which is talking about the 10 years long war, the Trojan War. All right, then epics start in media res. All right, very, very important. Epics start in media res. They dive into a crucial part of the action that is part of an important chain of events. And what is this phrase media res means? It is a Latin phrase which means in the midst of things, right? So what we are looking at, if we start with Iliad, is the war is already in process, right? It is already taking place, and our particular text starts at the beginning of the final year, right? It tells us that almost 9 years have already passed, and now we are again beginning another year of war, right? The events that came before the starting action may be something that the reader learns later in the story, often through flashbacks. The literary technique in media res was based on how the story started in two epics, sorry, poems for the Greek poet Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey. These poems are some of the foundational work of Greek literature and are prime examples of how to use media res in your story, or how you understand media res. Right, so let me just share the text with you. Just a second. So someone has said that is Game of the Thrones also an epic? Yes, in a way it is. because the scale of the storytelling in Game of Thrones is of epic proportions, most certainly. And the characters also come from, huge, respectable royal families of different houses, right? And they are fighting towards that, the throne. And the way the story is told, again, it's something that is quite reflective of it. And of course, you have the debate of um, the morality. Of course, what is good and what is bad. An actual event that took on a legendary significance. And the Aeneid recounts the adventurous life of Aeneas, mythic father of Rome, fabricates links between Augustus' Rome and Greek Golden Age. About the First Crusade. So the epic published an anxiety over Ottoman, for example, I'm giving example of Jerusalem Delivered. Expansion sought to imbue the historic conflict between Christians and Muslims with mythic import. So you are seeing that most of these texts are talking about the very beginning of time, right? The First Crusade in Jerusalem Delivered, or Iliad, which is talking about the 10 years long war, the Trojan War. All right, then epics start in media res. All right, very, very important. Epics start in media res. They dive into a crucial part of the action that is part of an important chain of events. And what is this phrase media res means? It is a Latin phrase which means in the midst of things, right? So what we are looking at, if we start with Iliad, is the war is already in process, right? It is already taking place, and our particular text starts at the beginning of the final year, right? It tells us that almost 9 years have already passed, and now we are again beginning another year of war at war, right? The events that came before the starting action may be something that the reader learns later in the story, often through flashbacks. The literary technique in media res was based on how the story started in two epics, sorry, poems for the Greek poet Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey. These poems are some of the foundational work of Greek literature and are prime examples of how to use media res in your story, or how you understand media res. Right, so let me just share the text with you. Just a second. So someone has said that is Game of the Thrones also an epic? Yes, in a way it is, because the scale of the storytelling in Game of Thrones is of epic proportions, most certainly. And the characters also come from, huge, respectable royal families of different houses, right? And they are fighting towards that, the throne. And the way the story is told, again, it's something that is quite reflective of it. And of course, you have the debate of um, the morality. Of course, what is good and what is bad. All right. So yeah. So let me just share the text with you. Just give me a second. I hope you have downloaded the text in the meantime. Okay. So page number 77. That's where the text starts. Let me just share the screen with you. Have you downloaded the text? I hope you have. Here's the text, the Rage of Achilles. Just a second, let me drink water. In the meantime, just read this particular lines. Just a second. The Achaeans countless losses, hurling down to the house of death so many sturdy souls, great fighter souls, but made their bodies carrion, feast for the dogs and birds. And will the Zeus was moving towards it end, begin muse, when the two first broke and clashed, Agamemnon, lord of men, and brilliant Achilles. What God drove them to fight with such a fury? Apollo, the son of um, Zeus and Leto, incensed at the king, he swept a fatal plague through the army. Men were dying, and all because Agamemnon spurned Apollo's priest. All right, so and you can read this, of course, a little more ahead. Okay, you can read it till here. So, what are we told right at the beginning? We are told right at the beginning that there is this son of Peleus that's known as Achilles, and there are countless losses. The Achaeans are suffering countless losses. Lots of souls are dying, and their bodies are being, are being feasted by dogs and birds. And then you will see Zeus taking a stand against this, and a muse is being called by begin muse with the two first broke and clashed Agamemnon, lord of men, and brilliant Achilles. So a muse is invoked for inspiration so that this story can be written. All right, and what do we see? That um, a fatal plague has been casted onto the army because the god Zeus was angry. Why was the god Zeus angry? Because Agamemnon spurned the Apollo's priest. All right, and for this we need to read the story: who was the Apollo's priest and why Agamemnon refused him. And then yes, Chryseis approached the Achaeans' fast ships to win his daughter back, bringing a priceless ransom. All right, so what do we see over here? That the story has begun somewhere in the middle, right? So we have been already told what has happened and what is happening right now. Okay, and we are also told that what will happen. Okay, what will happen? That Zeus will ultimately probably take a stand. Is he going to take a stand? Or if he is, then what is going to happen? Yeah, Pooja, just a second. I'll tell you the page number. The page number is 77. I'm reading from 77 and the line is, of course, 1. right? So you can read from lines 1 to 20, 21, 22, 20, 24, 1 to 24. I have read lines from book 1, 1 to 24. So I hope you have downloaded the text so far. Okay, and just a second. Yeah. So I hope you have understood the idea of what media ray is and how are we starting right in the middle of the Trojan War. Okay. So the screen is visible. And in Iliad, Achilles and Agamemnon fight during the Trojan War with no exposition. The first line immediately engages the reader with action. And the Roman poet Horace first made the observation in his work Ars Poetica, this idea of what media ray is. Okay, and by starting with action, the reader is immediately pulled into the quarrel or the war, and it already hooks the reader by making them wonder who these characters are and why are they fighting. All right. Then the theme of each epic is sublime, elegant, and having universal significance, right? It connects to the idea of morality. It talks about valor. It talks about, strength. It talks about what is good, what is bad. It talks about sacrifice. It talks about nationalism, patriotism. It has qualities that affect the mankind, right? And it may not be an insignificant thing which is only limited to the personality or the locality of the poet. It deals with the entire humanity, right? And therefore, even after so many ages, we are reading that particular text. And even when we are part of a different civilization altogether, right? Even if we have our own epics, we have Ramayana, we have Mahabharata, we have Mrityakatika, we have so many. Sorry, which one do you have? I'm sorry, I completely forgot. Silapadikaram. I think you have Silapadikaram. Yeah. So you have Silapadikaram, you have Mahabharata, you have Ramayana. So you have all of these epics. And we are also, alongside that, we are also looking at a classical epic. And we can connect to the story. We actually can connect to the story despite of the change in the context, despite the change even after so many years, right? So it deals with the entire humanity. And thus John Milton's Paradise Lost is also a great example, which we'll be studying later. And the theme of this particular epic is that it is of great value to the men to justify the ways of God to men. Why do gods behave like that? And here too in Iliad, we will be looking at why do gods behave like that in a very different way. All right. So then invocation to the muse, as we have just seen that the muse is invoked in the first few lines for inspiration, right? It is a very important quality of an epic, which you will also be reading in Paradise Lost. That always, whenever a epic is being written, the poet is always invoking the muse for inspiration. The poet at the very beginning of the epic seeks the help of the muse, and you can see this happening in Odyssey, you can see this happening in Iliad as well as Paradise Lost. And then the diction of every epic is lofty, grand, and elegant. No trivial, common, or colloquial language is used. What do we mean by this? No local language is used. The language is grand in its nature, like hyperbole, like the similes that are being used, right? The way it is written, it is grand. It is lofty, right? It is something that is written with a very different kind of ornamental language. All right. And the poet tries to use these different words, this ornamental language, to focus things that are absolutely ordinary, but of an extraordinary nature, right? So, this is this, like we have talked about valor, we have talked about honor, and you can like we have talked about valor, we have talked about honor, and you can read all of this. And we will talk about it later in the Homeric simile. All right. Then, what are the different types of epics? There are two types of epics. The first is the folk epic, and the second is the literary epic. The folk epic is an ancient epic which was originally in oral form, right? They were it was sung, it was not written, it was sung. With the passage of time, one author or many authors tried to preserve them in the form of writing. Thus, nobody happens to know about the exact authorship of the folk epics because they were not written down, they were sung to the audience. The folk epic is different from the art epic or the literary epic in the simplest sense that the former, that's the art epic, is based on, sorry, the folk epic is based on the particular mythology, while the latter is based on the ideas of the author. All right, so right now what we have is a folk epic or an ancient epic that is based on mythology. But then you have literary epics that is entirely based on what the poet is thinking or what the poet is going to create, something like Paradise Lost. All right, and here in a folk epic, we are using, we are using we are using gods and goddesses of the mythology. We are using princes. We are using the royal family, right? So we are using the things that are already present. It is not perhaps a creation or a figment of the imagination of the poet. All right. In art epic, the poet invents the story, while the folk epic is the product of mythology of the locality. And therefore, this is the reason why most people end up going on these quests to uncover the lost secrets of Iliad, right? The video that I shared with you. This is why it is so necessary. This is not necessary. Rather, this is what motivates the people, motivates the common folk, the ordinary folk, or anyone for that matter, to go and search for these lost secrets, whether it is Mahabharata, Silappatikaram, whether it is Oedipus, whether it is Iliad. So it motivates a lot of people to, search for truths. Is it true or is it not? Right? And then, of course, you have the folk epic is based in oral form, while the art or literary epic is in written form. The author of the literary epic is a well-known personality, while the author of the folk epic may be a common man. Okay, someone who has already observed what is happening, or someone who's already observing what is happening in front of him, right? And then the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Iliad, and Odyssey belong to this group, which is also called the primary epic, the folk epic, or the ancient epic. And then epic. And then we have the literary epic. The literary epic is usually known as the art epic. It is an epic which imitates the conventions of the folk epic, but but it is written in a but it gives a written shape to it, because in the ancient epic or the primary epic, it is sung. All right, it is being sung to the audience, but in literary epic, it is written down. All right, and written down like the folk epics, which came all the way down through us through oral traditions. The literary epic tend to be more polished, coherent, and compact in structure and style when contrasted with the folk epics. Literary epics are the result of the genius of the poet, and this is why they have greater significance from a literary point of view. All right, so what are we studying? Are we studying a literary epic or a folk epic? Anyone? Which epic are we studying? Yeah, you cannot see the chat box. Which epic are we studying? Are we studying a literary epic, or are we studying the ancient epic, or the primary epic, or the folk epic? Hmm? Has everyone gone to sleep? All right. So I think now will be a good time to start the story. All right. And for this, I want you to download the text because okay, Khushi, no. Kritika, yes. Um, no. Ummehani is wrong. Ria is correct. Kevin is correct. Bhati, that didn't answer which text is Iliad. No, I'm asking what Iliad is. Sunidhi is correct. Himanshi, Khushi. All right. So please download the text. Please download the text because now I'll be starting the text and it will be very difficult for me to go back and forth. So I want you all to open the text in front of you. Yes, you're right, Kriti, Sana, and Khushi. Shiba, Vidhi, Roshni, Sarabjit, you all are correct. So I want you to open the text right in front of you and I will be quoting lines from the text. So you can write them down as in when I read them out because I'll be going up and down and up and down. So it will be very difficult for me to, share the text. All right. So I am reading from the Penguin edition that I have shared with you, and I will read out the line numbers which you can note down. Okay. Please note down the numbers. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's start. So Iliad is a word, and please pay careful attention. Iliad is a word that means a poem about Ilium, that is Troy. Troy's name was Ilium, okay? And the story or the poem that is written about Ilium is Iliad, okay? And Homer's, and this is Iliad is a word that means a poem about Ilium, and Homer's great epic has been known as the Iliad ever since the Greek historian Herodotus so referred to it in the 5th century BC. All right, so let's start with the incident that took place right at the beginning. All right, so here we have on just a second on page number, like I said, I'll be going here. Yeah, so I'm reading from page number 77, right? And right at the beginning, like these lines. Yes, I get it, Husna. Please do not message me separately. Use the chat box. Okay, all right, I get it. Now we are moving on to the on the text, so please pay attention to it. We have to read both. No, Sunidhi, have a look at the syllabus. It's Iliad only. All right. Okay. Yeah, so please, like I've said, download the text and I'll read from the text. So page number 77, the first lines, the first few lines. Rage goddess sing the rage of Peleus, Peleus' son Achilles, murderous doomed that cost the Achaeans countless losses, hurling down to the house of death. So many sturdy souls, great fighters soul, but made their bodies carrion, feasts for the dogs and birds, and the will of Zeus was moving towards its end. Begin muse when the two first broke and clashed, Agamemnon, lord of men, and brilliant Achilles. So right at the beginning, you are told what is happening, why is the epic being written, what is the cause of, Achilles' rage. All right. So right at the beginning, you are told this. So page number 77, page number 77, the first few lines. All right. and then we will study later, and we've also be told that why was Achilles angry. Achilles was angry because Agamemnon did something. All right, so what is this incident? The incident that provoked Achilles' rage took place in the 10th and final year of the Achaean attack on Troy. And like I've said, the story starts in media res. We have already noticed that right in the few lines that 9 years of the war has already passed us by, and now we are in the 10th and the final year. All right, and why is Achilles angry? Achilles is angry because of Agamemnon. All right, and the incident that provoked Achilles' rage took place in the 10th and final year of the Achaean attack on Troy. And though Homer does work into his narrative scenes that recall the earlier, stages of their tiff, we will see what is going to happen. All right, and then the rage of Achilles, its cause, its course, and its disastrous consequences is the theme of the play. All right, in a nutshell, what is the theme of the play? The theme of the play is the rage of Achilles. That's the protagonist that we are going to read in in Iliad. Achilles, its cause, why is Achilles angry? Its course, why, how is Achilles going to work on his rage? What makes him work on his rage? What makes him angry, and how is he going to react to it? And ultimately, its disastrous consequences. So the actions that Achilles took for his rage against Agamemnon is the reason why Iliad is being written, and which brought, of course, the end to the 10-year war. And what are these consequences? What are these disastrous consequences? Are Is the story of Iliad, and that is what we will be reading. All right. So just give me. The text has already been shared. All right. It's on WhatsApp. By the way, the text is on WhatsApp as well as on the text is on WhatsApp as well as on the Microsoft Teams app. All right. So all right. So then Chryses, a poet of Apollo, whose daughter has been carried off by the Achaeans in one of their raids, come to the camp to ransom her. So let's have a look at the text. Just a second. I hope you have the text right in front of you, or else you are going to get very confused. Yeah, just a second. Okay. Yeah. So here. So this is where it all starts. What god drove them to fight with such a fury? Apollo, the son of Zeus and Leto, incensed at the king, he swept a final plague through the army. Men were dying, and all because Agamemnon spurned Apollo's priest, that's Chryses. Yet Chryses approached the Achaeans, fast ships to win his daughter back. So we already know, and we are already been told that Chryses' daughter is with Agamemnon, and he has come to Agamemnon to ask her back, bringing a priceless ransom and bearing high in hand, wound on a golden staff, the reeds of the god, the distant deadly archer. He begged the whole Achaean army, but most of all the two supreme commanders, Atreus' two sons, Agamemnon and Menelaus. Right? All Argives geared for war. May the gods who hold the halls of Olympus give you Priam's city to plunder. Then safe passage home, just set my daughter free, my dear one, here accept these gifts, this ransom. Honor the god who strikes from worlds away, the son of Zeus, Apollo. All right, so here you have Chryses who is coming to Agamemnon to ask his daughter back. All right, and he is beseeching him, he is asking him that please accept some other gifts and give back my daughter, return my daughter, or else it will be very difficult for you. All right, and then what does he say, what does everyone around them, the Achaean army, says that respect the priest, accept the shining ransom, but it brought no joy to the heart of Agamemnon. The king dismissed the priest with a brutal order, ringing in his ears, never again, old man, let me catch sight of you by the hollow ships, not loitering now, not slinking back tomorrow. The staff and the reeds of God will never save you then. The girl, I won't give up the girl. Long before that old age will overtake her in my house in Argus, far from her fatherland, slaving back and forth at the loom, forced to share my bed. All right, so this is the very beginning why Achilles gets angry. So this is the reason, all right? So this is how Iliad starts, that you have this priest of Apollo named you have this priest of Apollo, that is Chryses, who comes to Agamemnon to ask his daughter back. And he offers a lot of riches to Agamemnon so that Agamemnon returns his daughter. But Agamemnon is full of pride and he refuses to do so. All right, there is no PPT that I'm sharing. I'm telling you what the text is. Yes, I'll just tell you the number, Preeti. Preeti, the page number is 77 and 78, and the lines are 9 to this is second 9 to 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 36. From line 9 to 36, we will see what is the first incident that we are talking about that brings about the raid of Achilles. Just give me 2 minutes over here to rest my voice. Just a second. Just a second. So on page number 79, on page number 79, just a second, I'll share the text with you. Okay, so right here we have been told about the plague. 9 days the arrows of God swept through the army. On the 10th, Achilles called all ranks to muster. Okay, to muster, the impulse seized him, sent by white-armed Hera, grieving to see Achaeans fighters drop and die. Once they had gathered, crowding the meeting grounds, the swift runner Achilles rose and spoke among them. Son of Atreus, now we are beaten back. I fear the long campaign is lost. So home we sail if we can he refused the ransom in exchange for the daughter. That's why the archer sends us pain and he will send us more and never drive this shameful destruction from the archives, not till we give back the girl with sparkling eyes to her loving father, no price, no ransom paid, and carry a sacred 100 bulls to Chrysa's town. Then we can calm the god and only then appease him. Okay. The booty to the king who commands the Achaean army, Agamemnon, and he refuses to give her up. Her father prays for help to Apollo, who sends a plague that devastates the Achaean camp. Achilles, leader of the Myrmidons, one of the largest contingents of the Achaean army, summons the chiefs to an assembly. All right, so let's have a look at that. Just a second. Okay, so on page number 79, on page number 79, just a second, I'll share the text with you. Okay, so right here we have been told about the plague. 9 days the arrows of God swept through the army. On the 10th, Achilles called all ranks to muster. Okay, to muster, the impulse seized him, sent by white armed Hera, grieving to see Achaeans fighters drop and die. Once they had gathered, crowding the meeting grounds, grounds, the swift runner Achilles rose and spoke among them.